There are moments that don't just crack the world, they cleave it in two. You don't see them coming. They don't announce themselves. 1 second, you're making coffee like any other morning. The next, your wife of 10 years is standing across from you, saying she slept with someone else. On purpose. That was my moment. A Thursday. Mid-November. Frost on the windows, the kind that makes you want to stay inside a little longer. I was halfway through pouring milk into my mug when Elise walked in, barefoot, robe loose at the collar. I remember thinking she looked tired, like she hadn't slept. Then I saw her hands trembling. That was the first warning. She didn't sit down. She didn't stall. She just said it. I cheated on you. Just like that. Like she was telling me we were out of cereal. I stared at her. I didn't say anything at first. Not because I was calm. I just couldn't figure out how the words fit in my life. Elise and I didn't have that kind of marriage. We argued, sure. Drifted, sometimes. But infidelity? That belonged to other people. People who hated each other. People who'd stopped trying. Say something, she whispered. My mouth opened. Nothing came out. I set the mug down. The tile was cold beneath my feet, grounding in a way that felt unfair. Like my body knew something I hadn't caught up to yet. Who? I asked eventually. My voice sounded wrong. Distant. Like I'd stepped out of myself and left some poor imitation behind. She didn't answer right away. Just looked at me like she was measuring the safest way to hurt me. And then, you don't know him. It's not serious. That's when I laughed. I don't know why. It wasn't funny. But that's what came out. A sharp, hollow sound that bounced off the kitchen cabinets. You're telling me you threw a grenade into our marriage for something not serious? She flinched. It wasn't about that. What was it about, Elise? I snapped. You bored? Lonely? Looking for some adventure? And then she said it. The thing that made the rest of the morning irrelevant. The thing that split our timeline in two. It was revenge. Just like that. No apology. No tears. Just a cold, hollowed-out explanation that made my skin crawl. I wanted to hurt you, she said. The way you hurt me. Silence swallowed the room. My mind shot back to a night 8 years ago. A mistake. A brief one. Something I buried so deep I convinced myself she never knew. You knew, I said, slowly. Back then. She nodded. Of course I did. I felt like I was falling through the floor. Because she had known. For 8 years. She'd kissed me goodnight, held my hand in hospitals, planned our son's birthday parties, all while carrying that knowledge. That grudge. Like a seed she watered in secret. And now she was here, telling me she'd finally harvested it. You waited 8 years to do this? I asked, stunned. Her eyes didn't flinch. I wanted to see if you'd ever confess. You didn't. It was surreal. This was the woman I'd built a life with, bought a house with, mourned a miscarriage with. And now she was calmly admitting that every shared smile for nearly a decade had been laced with quiet, simmering contempt. I thought we moved on, I said. You thought I moved on, she corrected. You thought if you kept your head down long enough, I'd forget. I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe properly. My chest felt tight, like I was wearing someone else's ribs. Why now? I asked. Why tell me now? She looked at me like I was the naive one. Like I still hadn't caught up. Because it's done. And because I wanted you to feel it. My voice came back then, sharp with disbelief. So that's it? You just slept with someone to get even? That's your justice. She shrugged. It helped. I wanted to scream. To throw something. Instead, I walked to the sink and stared out the window, watching frost melt along the glass. I tried to count the seconds. Anything to keep from turning around. And yet, some part of me had always feared this. Maybe even expected it. Because I knew Elise. I knew the way she held on to things. But I didn't know she was capable of this. When I finally turned back around, she was still standing there. Still calm. Still wrapped in that stupid robe. I looked at her face, and for the first time in 10 years, I couldn't see a single piece of the woman I married. Who was he? I asked again, quieter now. She paused. Does it matter? I didn't answer. Because I knew it did. And I knew she knew it too. We didn't speak the rest of that day. She stayed upstairs. I stayed down. A storm settled between us, quiet but growing, each hour another flash of lightning waiting to strike. That night, I slept in the guest room. I laid there staring at the ceiling, trying to remember every time I'd ever lied to her. Every look, every deflection. And I wondered if this was what she'd felt back then. This hollow throb behind the ribs, this gnawing shame, this rage without direction. But there was one thing I couldn't shake. This didn't feel like revenge. It felt like a warning. I didn't see her the next morning. I heard her moving around upstairs quiet, like she was trying not to be heard. I stayed on the couch, blanket tangled around my legs, the TV on mute. Not that I was watching anything. I just needed the flickering light to feel less alone. Eventually, I heard the front door click shut. She'd gone out. I didn't ask where. I told myself I didn't care. The truth was uglier than that. I was scared. Scared of how composed she was. Scared of how much she wasn't trying to fix it. No apologies. No tears. Just distance. Clean and surgical. It was a Friday. Normally, I'd be at the office by now, fielding calls and drinking bad coffee out of the mug she got me on our anniversary 2 years ago. It said, "Still the one." I left it in the dishwasher that morning, turned face down like a body at a crime scene. I thought about calling someone. My brother, maybe. But what would I say? Elise cheated. Because I cheated. 8 years ago. And she never forgot. Would they pity me? Hate me? Would they ask the one question I was terrified to answer? Why did you do it first? Around noon, I went upstairs. Her side of the bed was made. Mine still dinted from the night before. There was a faint smell of her perfume in the room, that floral, heavy scent she always sprayed once and then once more. The bottle sat untouched on her vanity. A drop of dried residue crusted around the nozzle like a forgotten wound. I opened her closet. I don't know why. Maybe I expected to find something missing. A suitcase. A note. But everything looked the same, neatly arranged, categorized, as always. Except one hanger was empty. It used to hold the green dress. The one she wore when we went to that conference in D.C. The night I kissed someone else. Just a kiss. That's what I told myself. A mistake. One night. She never knew. But she did. I found the dress later on the laundry room floor. Still folded from the dry cleaner, plastic draped over it like a shroud. A receipt attached to the hanger. Pressed and cleaned. Worn last Tuesday. I checked the date twice. She'd worn it after she told me. After she said it was done. Why? That was the first moment I started to think something wasn't adding up. That this wasn't just revenge, it was choreography. The next day, I got my answer. Sort of. We were in the kitchen again. I was making eggs I didn't want. She walked in wearing gym clothes, face flushed from a run. She poured herself a glass of water, didn't look at me. The silence felt thick, like insulation. I want to tell you who it was, she said finally. I didn't move. You were right, she continued. It matters. I nodded. My hand tightened on the spatula. It was Dylan. The spatula clattered onto the stove. I stared at her. She didn't flinch. Dylan. Our contractor. The guy who renovated our deck 2 summers ago. The one who shook my hand with both of his. Who complimented my taste and would stain. Who came to our house for 4 weeks straight and laughed at my jokes and waved goodbye like we were friends. Elise, I said slowly, he's married, she finished. I know. I blinked. Jesus. She drank her water, unfazed. Like we were talking about the weather. Why? She met my eyes, finally. There was no shame in her face. Just something colder. More practiced. Because you liked him. That hit harder than I expected. And he liked you. And his wife, she hesitated for the first time. His wife is nice. Kind. Too kind, probably. She reminds me of me. Back then, there was something brutal in her calm, like she'd been preparing this speech for months. You didn't just want to hurt me, I said, my voice shaking. You wanted to mirror it. She didn't deny it. 8 years ago, she said, I cried in this kitchen for 3 nights straight. I scrubbed that counter until my hands bled. I didn't eat. I couldn't sleep. And you came home with flowers and a lie. I was scared, I said quietly. You were a coward. There was no venom in it. Just truth. Cold and flat. I kept it in for so long, Jacob. Buried it. Tried to move on. But you never said anything. You never once admitted it. So I decided, if I couldn't forgive you, I'd become you. I wanted to scream, throw a chair, grab her shoulders and shake the grief out of her. But I didn't, because in that moment, I saw her, really saw her, and she was gone. The woman I married, the soft-spoken, wide-eyed, fiercely loyal Elise, she'd been replaced by someone else. Someone efficient. Someone who could compartmentalize hurt like files in a cabinet. How long? I asked. She looked away. 3 months. I couldn't breathe. You saw him for 3 months? She nodded. It's over now. My voice cracked. And that makes it okay? No, she said softly. It just makes it done. We didn't speak after that. She left the room. I stood there, staring at the pan on the stove, eggs burned to the bottom like a second betrayal. I thought that was the end of it. That we'd sink into silence, maybe therapy, maybe lawyers. But 3 nights later, something shifted. She came into my office after midnight. No robe this time. Just jeans and a sweater. She looked tired again, but less guarded. More real. I need to tell you something else, she said. I turned slowly in my chair. What now? She hesitated. Her hands shook again. This time, it wasn't performative. I said it was about revenge, she said. But that's not the whole truth. I didn't say anything. She sat down on the edge of the couch, her eyes trained on the floor. I didn't just cheat to get even, Jacob. I wanted you to find out. I wanted it to unravel. Why? Because I don't know if I ever forgave you. And I didn't want to carry that anymore. The room went silent again. Except it wasn't silence. It was grief wearing a new face. That night, for the first time in weeks, I cried. And I didn't cry because she cheated. I cried because I realized something worse. We'd both been pretending. For years. We moved through the days like strangers after that. No screaming. No crying. Just silence that rang louder than anything else. She still made coffee in the mornings. I still pretended to read the paper. We passed each other in the hallway like neighbors after a bad fight, aware of each other, polite, but unwilling to meet in the middle. I started sleeping in the guest room permanently. The bed creaked differently. The walls felt closer. But I needed the distance. I couldn't sleep next to someone who could hold so much venom behind her eyes and still smile at dinner with my parents. That was the part one kept coming back to, not the cheating itself, but the performance. The ease of it. 3 months. She'd slept beside me for 3 months while erasing us one encounter at a time. One night, I found her sitting on the floor of the master bedroom, surrounded by boxes. Old photo albums, letters, keepsakes. Our wedding invitation creased at the corners. She was holding a picture of us on our honeymoon, Greece, the cliffs of Santorini behind us, my arm around her waist like it meant something permanent. She looked up when I entered. Her eyes were raw, but dry. I'm putting things away, she said. Not throwing them out. Just putting them where they belong now. I didn't answer. I just stood there, trying to remember what it felt like to be the man in that photo, and wondering when exactly he stopped existing. Something else had started gnawing at me since her confession. It was small at first, but persistent. A splinter under the skin. It didn't add up. Her choice of Dylan. The timing. The way she dropped it into conversation like it was scripted. The sudden desire to confess after it was over. I started thinking in questions. Questions that circled each other like wolves. Why Dylan? Why now? Why so precise? That's when I remembered her journal. She always kept one. Black moleskin, thin elastic band. She never hid it, but never exactly left it out, either. Mostly dreams, to-do lists, occasional thoughts. Or so I assumed. One morning while she was out, I searched the house. I told myself I wasn't looking for the journal. Just straightening up. Sorting through clutter. I found it in the back of her dresser drawer, wrapped in a scarf she never wore. I hesitated. My heart thumped like it was warning me. But I opened it anyway. The first entries were benign. Grocery lists. Work reminders. A quote from some podcast she liked. Then I hit one that made my skin go cold. January 3rd. He left his laptop open again. I saw the photo. Her name was in the subject line. So it wasn't just a one-time thing, was it? January 10th. 8 years. 8 years, and he still doesn't know I saw it all. Sometimes I wonder if I'm weak for staying. Or just strategic. February 18th. Dylan came by today to look at the railing again. He remembers my birthday. Jacob forgot it last year. April 2nd. I think I could do it. I think I could really do it now and not flinch. That scares me. Or maybe it's freedom. The entries kept going, a slow, calculated build-up. She'd been planning it for over a year. Not reacting. Planning. Not a heat-of-the-moment betrayal, but a measured, premeditated unraveling. She logged everything. When Dylan's wife was out of town. When I'd be working late. How to stagger her phone usage so nothing seemed off. And then this. July 9th. I still love him. Or the version of him I built in my head. The one who didn't lie, didn't cheat. Maybe that's who I'm trying to destroy. So I can stop pretending he exists. My hands shook. I closed the journal. My mouth was dry. This wasn't just revenge. It was euthanasia. She hadn't cheated to make a statement. She'd done it to put something to rest. Something I wasn't even sure I recognized anymore. And then something else clicked. Her timing. The night she told me, the exact day, I remembered an email. One I deleted without thinking. Some promotional junk from a hotel chain we used back in 2015. I pulled up my email, searched the trash folder. Found it. Thank you for staying at the Fairmont. Your feedback matters. Check the date. She hadn't told me the day after it ended. She told me the day after she stayed overnight again. My stomach dropped. I opened the email. The reservation had 2 guests listed. She'd lied. I confronted her that night. Waited until after dinner, after she'd cleaned up the plates like it was any other evening in our very broken home. You said it ended, I said quietly. She didn't look up. It did. I slid my phone across the table. Her eyes scanned the screen. Silence. Then she nodded. It was supposed to be goodbye, she said. I needed to look him in the eye. Make sure I wasn't lying to myself about what I felt. Or didn't feel. And did you? She looked me dead in the eye. I felt nothing. That's how I knew it was over. I sat down across from her. So you lied. Again. She flinched. But didn't deny it. You've been playing God, Elise. Deciding when the curtain closes. When the story ends. No, she said, softly. I've just been deciding when I end. In this marriage. I leaned back. The weight of her words pressed down like wet cement. We didn't speak for a while after that. The journal stayed hidden. I didn't bring it up. She didn't ask. But the damage was done. I knew now that it hadn't been about passion. Or Dylan. Or even revenge. It had been about control. And when someone is that methodical in how they leave you, they're not just walking away. They're making sure there's nothing left to come back to. After I found the journal, after she admitted she'd lied about when it ended, something in me turned. Not just anger, something colder. A shift, like realizing the rules of the game were never real to begin with. Like she'd handed me a map that led straight into quicksand and smiled while I sank. That weekend, I left the house for the first time in days. Not to escape. To investigate. I started with Dylan. I didn't contact him. I wasn't that desperate for confrontation. but I drove past his place, parked a block away. I told myself it was pointless, that I wasn't going to learn anything by staring at the soft glow in his upstairs window or the dent in his aging Toyota. But I needed to see it, needed to confirm he was real, that he wasn't some phantom Elise conjured up just to twist the knife. His wife came out around 9 p.m., took the trash out, looked up at the stars like she was praying for answers. She looked so familiar in that moment, like Elise 8 years ago, when she still wore hope like perfume. I went home and couldn't sleep. The next morning, I pulled up our phone records. Joint account. She'd never changed the password. I scrolled back months. Calls to Dylan's number, labeled Decker Fence Company, in her contacts. Short at first, then longer. One nearly 90 minutes long on the same night she told me she was going to the store. I started cross-referencing. Travel receipts. Gaps in her calendar. Every time she said she was at a conference or seeing Natalie, her coworker, I checked it. I called Natalie. Made it casual. Hey, just wondering if Elise ever talked to you about that conference in Chicago. She said you two shared a room. Natalie paused. Chicago? We haven't traveled together in over a year. I thanked her. Hung up. Sat there with the phone warm in my palm. It was unraveling. Fast. But it didn't stop there. I dug deeper. Opened our photo archive, the cloud account we both used but hadn't organized in years. Elise was meticulous in real life, chaotic online. I clicked through dozens of untagged, unfiltered shots. Most were boring. Grocery lists. Screenshots of books she meant to read. Then I found it. A video. 31 seconds long. Titled Test.mov. I almost didn't open it. But I did. It was Elise, holding her phone low, filming a dim hotel room mirror. She looked, not like herself. Hair tousled. Makeup smudged. She was talking to someone out of frame. Laughing softly. You always say that, she said. That he'll never know. A man's voice answered. Not Dylan's. The accent was different. Softer. Maybe southern. The clip cut off abruptly. 31 seconds. No timestamp. No location. I sat frozen for a full minute before I played it again. And again. Who the hell was that? This wasn't Dylan. This was someone else. And this wasn't about revenge anymore. This was routine. I waited until that night. Waited until she'd showered and changed and curled up in the armchair with her laptop like nothing had changed. Like we weren't crumbling in slow motion. Who was he? I asked. She looked up. Slowly. Blinked. Who? Not Dylan. Her fingers froze over the keyboard. I slid the phone across the table. Played the clip. Her face drained of color. Not shock. Not guilt. Just a slow, creeping realization that her secret had outgrown the space she built to contain it. How long, Elise? I asked. She looked at the video once more, then set the laptop aside. 2 years, she said. I flinched. His name was Chris. We met at a conference in Denver. Nothing serious. Just escape. You said Dylan was the only one. I know what I said. She didn't even try to deny it. That hurt more than if she had. You lied, I said. Again. She nodded. I did. Something cracked open in my chest. A hollow pressure, like a cave-in. Was he before or after you found out about me? After, she said. I think. Maybe it doesn't matter anymore. It matters to me. She looked at me then. Really looked. For the first time in weeks, her eyes weren't cold. They were broken. Flickering. Human. You broke something in me, Jacob. Back then. And I tried so hard to fix it. Tried to be better. Tried to forgive. But you never gave me the chance. You never said the words. So you started looking for someone else to say them? No, she whispered. I started looking for someone who didn't make me feel like I was disappearing. I felt dizzy. Why didn't you leave me? I asked. Because I wanted to win, she said. I wanted to be the one who stayed. Who made it work. Who held the house up when you tried to burn it down. She stood then, not in anger, just to leave. You're not the only villain here, Jacob, she said quietly. But you were the first. When the door closed behind her, I didn't move, because I finally understood. She hadn't just cheated for revenge. She'd rewritten the narrative, cast herself as the one who suffered quietly, who rose above, who loved harder. And when that version didn't fit anymore, she flipped the script. If I can't forgive him, she must have thought, then I'll become something he can't forgive either. And somehow, that felt worse. Not because it was cruel, but because it was calculated mercy. A clean ending. A final, mutual erasure. I didn't see her for 2 days. She stayed at a hotel, I assumed. Maybe with friends. Maybe with him, Chris. Or Dylan. Or whoever else I didn't know about yet. I didn't ask. I didn't want her answer. The house was too quiet without her. Not peaceful, just hollow. Her mug still sat by the sink. Her sweater was still draped over the back of the couch, soft and gray and ghostly. I didn't touch it. I didn't put it away. I just let the weight of her absence settle into the furniture like dust. But I couldn't leave it alone. Not anymore. You don't dig up a corpse and then walk away from the grave. You keep going. You see how deep the rot runs. On the 3rd night, I unlocked her laptop. She never changed her passwords. That was the thing. She was careful, not paranoid. She never thought she needed to be. At first, it was nothing. Work emails. Photos from trips I remembered hating. Pinterest boards full of renovations we never started. I almost gave up. Then I found the archive folder. Buried deep. It was labeled July. Just that. Neutral. Forgettable. Inside were screenshots. Dozens of them. Texts between her and a contact saved as W. Booth. A throwaway name. Could have been anyone. But the conversations, they weren't just flirty. They were intimate. Detailed. Lingering. This had been no one-night lapse. No brief rebound. They talked about me. About our house. Our routines. Our arguments. He still doesn't see me. It's like living next to a ghost I used to love. He's so careful now, like he knows he's under surveillance. I want to destroy something. Just once. Just to know I can. The messages dated back 1.5 years. I scrolled and scrolled until the guilt turned into nausea. Until the pain curdled into rage. She hadn't just been wounded. She'd been building something behind my back. Something deliberate. And this W. Booth, he knew it all. Every private thought she hadn't shared with me in years. Until I hit a message that stopped me cold. He deserved it. You were right. 8 years is a long time to keep a secret. Now I'm even. I can breathe. Sent the night before she told me about Dylan. But here's the thing. The date on the message was a week before her supposed goodbye weekend with him. She'd lied about that too. This wasn't closure. It was theater. The affair, the confession, the performance of hurt. It had all been timed. Practiced. As if she wanted to control not just the damage, but my reaction to it. I checked the email linked to the folder. It wasn't her usual one. A throwaway address. Gmail. Created under the name Elise Manning. Her maiden name. I searched it. Found nothing at first. Then I checked the cloud backup on the account. Just in case. One document. Titled, A Theory of Forgiveness. I opened it. It was dated months ago. A mix of journaling and observation. Like some kind of cruel academic paper. Some betrayals never leave the body. They calcify. Become part of the nervous system. I think I forgave Jacob the day he lied. But then I watched him rebuild his sense of goodness over the bones of my silence. Forgiveness without confession is just enabling. If you refuse to bleed for what you did, I will make you feel the cut. Page after page. Her handwriting, scanned in, and cold, surgical prose. Dissecting our marriage like a failed experiment. I still wonder if I was wrong about what he did. If it was just one kiss. But it doesn't matter anymore. Not after what I've done. We're even now. Maybe worse. She didn't know. She didn't know that my affair, that stupid, selfish lapse, wasn't even what she thought it was. It hadn't lasted more than a weekend, and it hadn't been someone I loved. It had been a mistake, a symptom, not a disease. But her betrayal had become a system, a structure, a form of oxygen. I should have stopped reading. Instead, I found the part that truly broke me. A list. A bullet-pointed list of possible outcomes to her confession. Scenario A. He breaks down, cries, apologizes, admits everything. We rebuild, slowly. I get the last word. Scenario B. He's angry, distant. I let him stew. Wait until he chases me. Then pull away. Create longing. Scenario C. He leaves. I get the house. The sympathy. The narrative. Underlined beneath all of them. Control the ending. If you don't, he will. I stared at those words until the screen blurred. Control the ending. That was the whole point. It had never been about Dylan, or Chris, or W. Booth. It was about narrating the fall, choosing the moment of detonation, making sure the collapse looked like poetry instead of failure. That night, I printed the entire document, all 14 pages. I laid them out on the dining table. Waited. She came home late. Her key turned in the lock like any other night. When she walked in, she looked tired, not surprised. She saw the papers, saw me, didn't speak. I asked her one question. Were you ever going to stop? Her eyes filled with something like sorrow, or the memory of it. I was waiting for you to become the man I kept pretending you were. And when that didn't happen, I wrote the ending myself. I nodded, once, and I walked upstairs. I didn't slam the door. I didn't yell. I didn't call her names or threaten lawyers or beg. I just closed the bedroom behind me. And for the first time in 10 years, I slept without wondering who she needed me to be. She didn't come upstairs that night. I don't know where she slept. On the couch, maybe. In the car. I didn't ask. I didn't care. I woke before dawn. The house was quiet, the kind of silence that feels intentional. I walked down the stairs slowly, my hand trailing the railing like I was saying goodbye to something I hadn't admitted was dying. She was in the kitchen, hair tied back, barefoot, sipping coffee like it was any other day. She didn't look at me when I came in, just pulled a second mug from the cabinet and set it beside mine. Muscle memory. Habit. The kind you don't lose, even when you've hollowed someone out. I didn't touch it. I'm not going to fight you, she said quietly. If you want to leave, I won't stop you. That's generous, I said. The sarcasm came out sharp, harsher than I meant. But she didn't flinch. I was hoping for something cleaner, she admitted. I thought if I confessed, it would all collapse at once. Like a controlled burn. I stared at her. You wanted a clean ending? She nodded. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. The edge of the granite dug into my ribs, kept me awake. You were never going to give me that, I said. You wanted to burn the house down and then complain about the smoke. She set her mug down gently. The clink of ceramic on stone felt louder than it should have. You cheated first. I nodded. I did. I never meant to become this version of myself, she whispered. You wrote her into existence, I said. And then you became her. She didn't deny it. And that's what undid me in the end. Not the infidelity, not the manipulation, not the lies layered on top of each other like sediment, but the complete absence of remorse, the surgical precision of her detachment. I went upstairs, showered, packed a single duffel bag. When I came back down, she was still sitting at the table, hands folded, no tears. I set the keys beside her. I'm not staying, I said, but I'm not leaving everything to you, either. Her brow furrowed. What do you mean? I mean, I've already spoken to a lawyer. The house goes on the market. We divide everything. Clean. Legal. Real. She looked stunned. Not because of the decision, but because I'd already made it. Without her. Without consulting the director of the ending. You didn't even tell me. No, I said. I didn't. Because I don't need to ask your permission to walk away from something you already abandoned. I thought you'd fight harder, she said softly. I gave a bitter smile. I fought for 8 years. You were just playing the long game. Her eyes dropped. She reached for her mug, then stopped halfway, like she realized there was no comfort left in it. As I opened the door, she finally spoke again. Do you think you'll ever forgive me? I turned to look at her one last time. You didn't want forgiveness, I said. You wanted the story to end your way. And then I walked out. The first few weeks felt like detox. Not from her, but from the version of myself I'd been when I was with her. The man who measured peace by how still she was in the morning. Who waited for the shift in her tone before deciding what kind of day it would be. The man who cheated once, terribly, and spent nearly a decade trying to pretend it hadn't fractured everything we touched. I sold the house. Split the money. She didn't contest a thing. Maybe she was tired of holding all the strings. Maybe she finally realized that control isn't the same as power. I never heard from Dylan, or Chris, or W. Booth. But a mutual friend told me she moved out of state 6 months later. Took a job somewhere in Oregon. Something quiet. Something administrative. Her social media went dark. No new photos. No smiling brunches or sunlit vacations. Just quiet. Maybe she finally ran out of narratives. Maybe she learned to live with silence. As for me, I rented a small place in a city where no one knew my name. Got a job I didn't have to carry home with me. Started walking at night. Sleeping with the windows cracked open. Letting the air in. Letting the past out. I never wrote her a letter. Never sent a final message. Because some betrayals don't get closure. They just get distance. I still think about her sometimes. Not with longing. Not with hate. Just with a kind of strange, reverent grief for the version of us that never stood a chance. And sometimes, on the really quiet nights, I remember her final question. Do you think you'll ever forgive me? And I still don't have an answer. Because forgiveness is a story, too. And I'm not sure I want to write another one. Thanks for watching. If this story pulled you in, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss the next confession. Until next time, take care and watch who you trust.